Do we put too much emphasis for milestone chapters in manga? The short answer, yes. Yes, we do. Wow, great. That was easy. You guys can click away. But if you guys want to know why and how I reached this conclusion, then this is Griever, and let's just start talking about it. First things first, what's a milestone? What's a milestone chapter? Well, according to a quick Google search, a milestone is either number 1, a stone set up beside a road to mark the distance in miles to a particular place, hence milestone. Makes a lot of sense, not so relevant here. More so the second definition, which is an action or event marking a significant change or stage in development, i.e. the speech is being hailed as a milestone in race relations. Now, other examples of this sort of idea are milestones in using time. Time's a big factor. Time and numbers. Big usage of the term milestone. For example, marriage. Your marriage anniversary, your wedding anniversary, right? You usually do that. I mean, it's a yearly thing. It's an annual thing. But of course, you have milestones. What are the milestones? Well, some people celebrate 5, 10, 15, 25, 50. Some people skip it all together. But there's a perfect example. Another way a milestone can work is things of significance in your life. These in manga would be referred to as hype moments, so they're not as relevant as a milestone chapter necessarily, and we're going to get into the difference between a milestone chapter and a milestone moment in manga in a bit. But an example of this would be getting your first car or your driver's license. Once again, getting married, graduating from college. All these events would be significant factors and could be considered a milestone. Or if you're like me and your birthday is right around the corner and you're going to be turning 30, 30 would be a milestone, right? So, now that we know what a milestone is, what's a milestone chapter for manga? Well, straightly put, it's pretty self-explanatory. Generally speaking, most of the community agrees that a milestone chapter for any manga, regardless of the length of the series, is in no less than numerical values of 100. They're all, so chapter 100, 200, 300, 400. Generally speaking, some people like to say a milestone chapter by the anniversary dates. Oh, this series started 10 years ago. This is a milestone chapter on the 10th year anniversary since it was published. Generally speaking, most of the community does not refer to that, though we, of course, it's always celebrated. You know, there's always a color page or something to that effect or an announcement, usually at the anniversary dates. But a milestone chapter is usually in increments of 100s. So, that being said, now that we know what a milestone is, and we know what we're referring to a milestone chapter, why this video? Well, because there's a lot of milestone chapters right around the corner. In fact, there's one coming out this weekend in Akatsuki no Yona, also known as Yona of the Dawn. Yona of the Dawn, chapter 200, which I will be live streaming this weekend for a full live reaction because it's a milestone. It's a big deal. I'm making a big deal out of it, even though I've already made this video, hopefully before that video comes out. The reason for this is because it's hype. Milestone chapters are hype. And if we look no further than the best-selling manga of all time, we have One Piece chapter 1000. A very rare milestone. Because as I said, we are still working in increments of 100 for milestone chapters, but One Piece has been going on over 20 years, and now we have chapter 1000, probably by the end of this year or the first week of January even. Chapter 1000, a very big deal. And looking still into Shonen Jump, we have My Hero Academia getting very close, and Black Clover, though lagging about 10, 20 chapters behind, is still coming up there, both going to be reaching their milestones of chapter 300. So, this is a relevant video. This is relevant stuff to talk about, of course. Now, the question is, how did I reach the conclusion of yes, we put too much hype, we put too much emphasis and relevance on milestone chapters? How did I come up with such an easy, short answer of yes? Well, it's quite basic, really. Break down all the manga series, especially the long-running ones you have read. Are you telling me that all the major hype moments, and here's where we're going to get into a bit of a smaller discussion about the difference between a milestone chapter and a hype moment, because we seem to pair them up in the manga anime community. You know, we twist them together so they're locked in solid. But that's not always the case. And I have created some charts here to showcase that, which I'll show you guys in a bit. However, going back to my original point, is that hype moments here don't always correlate with a milestone chapter. And if you've been reading manga as long as I have, and if you've read, dozens or hundreds of series, you should know by now that not all the major events, and sometimes borderline boring chapters, can be a milestone chapter. Now, let's just talk really quickly about what you would expect. Let's talk about expectations and why we're talking about hype moments now when we were talking about milestones. Because right now in the One Piece community, everyone is expecting the biggest drop. We're going to find out in the One Piece chapter 1000, something's going to go down. A character's going to die. The Will-O-D is going to be figured out. Zoro's going to get Conqueror's Haki, which was trolled and teased last chapter. Something major, right? Shanks shows up, and Blackbeard and Shanks show up to Wano, right? These are the things that people are expecting to go nuts for in chapter 1000. Now, I'm not saying there isn't going to be something badass and cool happening for chapter 1000. Of course, Oda knows the hype that's building around this. But should that break the pace of the story? No, it should not. This is also true of Akatsuki no Yona. Everyone is really hyped for this. That's why I was sort of half considering and then basically asked by the people that do comment on my Akatsuki no Yona videos that you should make chapter 200. It's chapter 200. It's a big deal. By saying it's chapter 200, we're automatically supposed to know, like, oh, it's a milestone. So it's got to be major. It's going to be a huge chapter. The page length is going to be huge. It's going to be a major development. Character deaths, character introductions, big battles, final things, Super Saiyan 3 revealed, that kind of stuff, right? We all expect for this big wow moments for milestone chapters. This is not really, has very little evidence, in all honesty. It's got some, it's not baseless, but it has little evidence to prove that in a lot of popular and long-running manga, that milestone chapters, for the sake of breaking pace, they will not do it. Because you have to think about this. If someone is to write a story, they don't make chapter 50 of their book or chapter 100 where everything goes down. A perfect example that I just brought up about One Piece. Shanks stopping the war is almost a universally accepted as one of the top hype moments in One Piece. Nothing happened. Another one. I Want to Live. Another one. None of these moments happened in One Piece milestone chapters. Another example of this would be something like Bleach. Bleach is another example. It's a long-running one that I really like. Bleach, though, does have some really hype, and we'll get to my charts in a bit to showcase that there are a couple of chapters that the milestone was relevant, but some of the biggest hype moments in Bleach, going Bankai, the reveals of other characters' Bankais, the defeat of a villain, a new transformation. Dragon Ball Z, another example of this. Super Saiyan 1, Super Saiyan 2, Super Saiyan 3, Fusion. None of these happened during milestone chapters. Why? Because sometimes the pace of the story just does not allow it. But somewhere along the way, we got confused. I hear so many people talking about how chapter 200 of Yona, chapter 1000 of One Piece are going to be the great chapters of the year. And I'm not saying they won't be, but I'm saying that the number has not as much significance as we would like to think. That being said, why don't we go to the charts now? Let's check out my charts, which are, of course, totally biased and opinionated, ladies and gentlemen. But now, I believe I put it up on screen. I think I know how to edit a video by now. And you can see that I've chosen just a select number of series that I've read at least once, if not twice. And I went back and checked all these chapters for their relevance and to see in all these series which chapters were milestone chapters, actually had some groundbreaking, either significant information, a big character reveal, a character death, or some of the top moments of the series happened coincidentally with the milestone chapters. Now, if you look at this first page here, and I don't exactly know how I'm going to be able to fit it all on one page. I'm hoping I'm going to be able to, but if I can't, I'll do a scroll function. We're just going to go down just a couple of key ones here. And so you guys are aware, this is all opinion based on me. I didn't take into a lot of consideration anybody else's opinions. I didn't go on a forum. I didn't take a poll. I just went through all of these chapters for series that I knew about and tried to see, all right, was this the Willa D revealed? Is this a I want to live moment? Is this and I'm sorry to keep using One Piece, ladies and gentlemen. Well, I'm not sorry. It's the big thing right now. Chapter 1000 is so close. And this is why we're bringing up this topic. This is why this video is here. So, if you notice, I used a system of stars. 3 stars being, yes, this was a major deal. This was a turning moment. It was a hype moment. It was either I used 3 stars as, yes, the milestone lived up to the hype, right? Outside of that, of course, it's a pretty simple system. You have 1 to 3 stars. 3 stars being, yes, this is everything. This is 10 out of 10, 11 out of 10, everything what a milestone chapter is expected by the fan base in the community. And all the way, of course, 2 star. Yeah, okay, something significant, but, not as maybe hyped up as potentially it was. And then, of course, 1 star. Yeah, something happened, but And then, of course, no stars is this chapter meant about as much as every other chapter, that week in the community, right? With you're reading weekly, monthly, bi-weekly, whatever you're reading. So, that being said, the image has probably been on screen long enough now. You guys have been able to give it the once over, and I hope it's not shrunken down too much. For an example of some 3-star actual hype moments, let's go back to Bleach there for a moment. In Bleach, chapter 100 was one of the big moments that set up probably and arguably one of the best arcs in all of the shonen demographic in history. The Soul Society arc. And why it was so good, and why Aizen is a great villain, why he's a great antagonist to the series. Regardless of your opinion of Bleach, because I know it's not as universally loved as things like One Piece or One Punch Man, Bleach definitely has a massive following, and Chapter 100 was a big deal. Why? Chapter 100 was the start of the Aizen murder plot. It was the chapter where we got introduced, we were already introduced to Aizen, but this is where he had his talk with Momo, and then Momo finds him stabbed and his dead body up in the Serite. And it started this chain of events to make an incredible arc, an incredible story, an incredible villain, right? There's so much to talk about there, but this video, we don't want to make this 2 hours long. So, that being said, that's why that got 3 stars. That was major. Now, as you can see, the next couple of milestone chapters, other than key points here and there, 400 and 600 by the looks of my stats here, they did not seem to do anything really relevant. Kubo did not make super relevant milestones after chapter 100. Now, you could argue also that chapter 100 and 1000 are bigger milestones than the ones in between. You can, of course, make that argument, and there is some proof in that. However, it's not, of course, necessity. Case in point, let's look at some of these other ones. We have Beelzebub. Nothing. Assassination Classroom. Nothing. Air Gear was basically 1 star. The Devil's 3030, that sort of thing was introduced, but Boku no Hero itself. My Hero Academia. The one where we're chapter 300 is pretty soon too. But looking at My Hero Academia, chapter 100 and 200, there was no big Dobby reveal chapter in chapter 100 or 200. It was just a random number. There was no big Endeavor fight. There was no All Might stuff. There was no, right? So these there was no Twice. Twice is death. So those milestones, nothing. Dragon Ball Z, huge fan. Another perfect example. 3 milestones with so many hype moments, so many iconic classic moments. Not a single one of them happened in the milestone chapters. So I bring this all up, and this is only the first half of one chart, but I wanted to just showcase this for a moment because this is, I think, where we're getting confused. we are taking these hype moments and correlating them with a milestone chapter. And so far, as the evidence has just shown, even big name mangas like Bleach, My Hero Academia, and Dragon Ball Z, My Hero Academia and Dragon Ball Z don't even have a single one that's worth even a 1-star mention. Not even a new character reveal. Bleach, on the other hand, had one, definitely major one that lived up to the hype, but for another 600 chapters, milestones didn't seem to matter. Now, of course, we do have the opposite of this. If we go over, and yes, we are sort of going in an alphabetical order. I didn't intend this, but let's just do it. We have here in the next column, we have Fairy Tail, History's Strongest Disciple, Inuyasha, Magi, Medica Box, and Seven Deadly Sins. Now, Fairy Tail, though for all its faults, and you guys are probably going to look at this. Now, once again, remember, these stars are not saying that Fairy Tail is an amazing series. I like it, but I see a lot of the faults with it. These stars are not saying that the manga is insanely better than a series that got no stars. The stars are simply there for relevance in world, in manga. It's not a comparison. Chapter 100 is, for example, a 3-star thing. It was the Urza battle thing at the end where Natsu gets her and stuff. And once again, this is going to be spoiler heavy. I should have mentioned that. But chapter 100 is where he's standing in the lake after the big battle with Jalal and all that stuff. And he's standing holding her like you have to live. And she cries and all that stuff. And it's a really tender moment, I remember. And also, during this moment, she has sort of an out-of-body experience where she sees a future where she died. And they were at her funeral and it's raining and all this stuff, of course. This was a very powerful moment. You can't argue, and a lot of people, many people that hate on Fairy Tail now, loved it in the beginning. And I loved it in the beginning. And this is one of the core reasons. But it's not just chapter 100. Most of these chapters all had significant relevance. Either it was a major power-up for a character, a lot of them were plot revelations. Gray finds out that Natsu is End. Ignil is finally is found. Ignil, he's finally found. Natsu's dad is finally revealed and found, and he's here, and they finally meet after all this, after this big long running manga. Zeref is introduced. Here, Mashima seemed to take some form of relevance with milestones and tried to give the fan base a correlation to that. But if we look once again at some other long running ones, Inuyasha and History's Strongest Disciple here, outside of 2-star chapter 400 from History's Strongest Disciple, and I'm being a little generous, not really too much, right? And if you keep scrolling down, we have the opposite of this. We have the opposite of relevance. Once again, not a great chapter. Actually, it's relevant in a different way. Seven Deadly Sins. They made some relevance. Nakaba did do some relevance for chapter 100 and 200. However, chapter 300 gets 3 stars. But Griever, I thought you hated chapter 300. Just watch your videos on it and how much you hated Seven Deadly Sins by the end. Let me explain something to you, ladies and gentlemen. Chapter 300 is still a milestone chapter. It is a milestone chapter with heavy significance because it's so terrible. Because this is truly, we saw the hints of it for a long time in that arc of Seven Deadly Sins. But chapter 300 is where the series took a complete and utter. Chapter 300 was the turning point. I said it on the Boar's Hat podcast on Grim Reaper's channel. Go check that out. And I said it in my own review. And for videos and podcasts and discussions on Discord and Reddit later, I always brought up chapter 300 as the big problem that started the downfall for Seven Deadly Sins from that point on. It had problems previously, but none so significant as this. So that is why we have the opposite stuff. I suppose I could have made it sort of a black star rather than a gold star sort of idea, like made it grayed out or something like that. But chapter 300 is still a huge, relevant milestone chapter because of a negative aspect. So we have the differences there. Milestone chapters and their significance aren't always necessarily a good thing. Now, once again, this could be anything from, in a romantic setting, you would have the main characters finally get their first kiss, right? That would be a significant milestone, easy 3 stars, right? You could have an iconic something like Sailor Moon or Super Saiyan transformation, Dragon Ball Z, right? If that happened to be the case, of course, that'd be a big 3-star thing. It's iconic, it's relevant, blah, blah, blah. If you have the end of an arc in a significant way, like the final punch, the final battle, sure, that would earn a few stars. Of course, Shanks stops the war. Once again, big moment, easy to bring up with One Piece. So, that being said, let's look at One Piece. Let's look at Naruto and One Piece here. Let's look at this. And we see that Naruto here, let's do Naruto first. Let's keep going in order. Why not? Naruto, for the first 300 chapters, Kishimoto, nah, whatever, right? There was nothing here for him, really, that was significant. Now, chapter 400, however, was a major deal. It was the reveal to Sasuke, of course. It was the reveal of Itachi's true backstory. We got the finalized story of one of the best characters, if not the best character, in all of Naruto. And that was that chapter. So 400 was a major development, a big deal for a fan favorite, a fan loved, a fangirled character up the yin-yang. And it was very relevant to the story. Afterwards, things were a little relevant. Of course, ending chapters, Naruto just happened to end on chapter 700. So, of course, the sort of epilogue chapters, I give them a couple of stars. I mean, it's not really relevant for anything new anymore, but it's relevant because it is the end of a series. It's usually an epilogue and stuff. And the ending of Naruto was not... The last chapter was it was all right. It was pretty good. So that being said, 5 and 600 also had some relevant moments as well. Now, let's get into the big one. Let's get into the big one we were talking about. We've already covered Akatsuki no Yona. We covered Black Clover. And we covered... I didn't actually end up mentioning Black Clover because Black Clover, not really much there either. It's just like Boku no Hero. Not really a whole lot. And their big milestones are coming up. So when people are going to be expecting big things from their respective chapter 300s, it's unlikely we're actually going to get any major developments at that point. So I'm just trying to taper down and try to temper the hype and the buildup that is happening in the community right now, because so many people, if it's not an 11 out of 10 wow curveball moment with the biggest reveal ever, then, you know, if it's not the Willa D discovery mixed with Super Saiyan 4, people are not going to be happy. And that's, as I said, it's the wrong response because we, the community, are putting too much hype. As I said, looking at One Piece, not a single 3-star moment. One Piece is filled with hype moments. But the only actual moments in One Piece that had a milestone reveal that was alright, semi-relevant, was chapter 500 was the reveal of Silver's Rayleigh, so I gave that 2 stars. And chapter 100 was Dragon. Dragon, you know, in Logtown, Luffy, Smoker, that whole chapter. Outside of that, I forget what chapter 700 actually was about there, but I had to do a lot of research, as you guys can tell. But in all honesty, look, 200, 300, 400, 900, nothing of significance to the story, no big hype moments, no new character reveals. And as I said, for major character reveals like Dragon and Rayleigh, I made sure to give them their due credit. However, in the half of One Piece, the milestones have just gone by without a thought. And if we continue to look down the list, now we see Prince of Tennis, barely anything, Rave Master by Mashima, same idea, who seemed to only to do this for Fairy Tail, but not so much for his older series of Rave. We have Kenshin, Shaman King, Shokugeki no Soma, also known as Food Wars, Toriko. Nothing really beyond a 2-star, and the only reason Shaman King gets a 2-star for its chapter 300 is, once again, it's an end of series, it's an epilogue chapter, it deserves its due credit, it deserves its merit for that. Once again, so these are the series that I covered. These are the ones I went back and checked all the chapters for. Now, you guys can argue, of course. You could say, oh, what are you talking about? One Piece chapter 300? That deserves 5 stars. It's the greatest chapter of all time because of this, this, and this. Once again, this is only my own biased opinion. I had to do a lot of research, and I just did a quick read, 99, 100, 101, and had to get into the mindset of the story once again. So if you think something deserved a star or 2 or whatever, make your own list, make your own video. I'm fine with that. I was just going through to try to show the relevance, and from what we can see here, there's a lot of blank spots, and in all honesty, I think there's only 4 or 5 at most 3-star moments. Now, once again, the relevance of a 3-star moment, everyone is expecting One Piece chapter 1000 to be a 3-star moment. Everybody is expecting Akatsuki no Yona coming out this weekend, chapter 200, to be a 3-star moment. And everybody is expecting the same, likely, once it's getting closer, for Black Clover and My Hero Academia, for chapters 300 respectively. All this is shown, all these charts and all my words and yada yada yada, all this is saying is that there is some merit and some basis for milestone chapters being a big deal in story, in manga, in world. However, there's just as much, or if not more, evidence here to show that mangakas will not break the pace of their story for a number. Mangakas are not going to all of a sudden drop something completely out of left field just for the hype because it's chapter 300. When that moment is better suited for chapter 322. They're not going to break the pace of their arc. They're not going to break the pace of their story for that. Now, some mangakas might plan around that. Looking at Fairy Tail, Mashima after Rave, which, he did not do anything significant for his milestone chapters. In Fairy Tail, he seemed to try his best to make relevant things happen for milestones. And, once again, some mangakas did attempt to do that. Kubo attempted to do that with chapter 100 of Bleach, but afterwards, not so much. So all I'm trying to point out to you guys here is that clearly we put too much emphasis and hype on these chapters, on these milestones. I'm not saying we shouldn't be hyped for chapter 1000. I'm not saying we shouldn't be hyped for chapter 200, both One Piece and Yona respectively. All I'm trying to say is the community has a bit of a fragile sort of ice-like exterior. They hype something up to the point that it will get so out of proportion that anything less than, for example, One Piece, all the Yonkos fighting all the admirals and Roger comes back from the dead and we find out the Will of D. Anything short of that is going to disappoint people reading chapter 1000. And it shouldn't. Now, once again, I'm not saying that Oda knows how significant chapter 1000 is. I'm sure he's planning something to be relevant and hyped for chapter 1000. But once again, maybe chapter 1100 won't really be that relevant. Once again, looking at the One Piece, looking at the history of it, Oda doesn't really seem to do much with his own milestone chapters. Sometimes he does, sometimes he doesn't. It's a hit and miss thing. And it's the same, once again, Black Clover, not so much. I think I gave 1 chapter 1 star. Boku no Hero, nothing. Dragon Ball Z, the classic father of shonen, battle shonens, didn't really do anything. So I'm just trying to make this video before the reveals of these 4 major series, getting their milestone chapters, and the amount of weight and pressure we are putting on the mangakas for a number. And as I've just shown, repeating myself once again, the evidence that I've gathered from my own opinions, once again, it's me reading the chapters, it's me giving the stars. This isn't researched or, done with poll or popularity. This is just me rereading these series and looking at the chapters and going, the big moments didn't happen in a perfect world of chapter 100, 200, 300. They just didn't. The better moments were chapter 57, 186, and 224, right? Because the pacing of the story, that's the way it worked. So I hope you guys enjoyed. That was the long answer. Still coming to the same conclusion that do we put too much hype? Is there too much relevance and emphasis in the community on milestone chapters? I think that my explanation and my charts here showing a lot of major and popular series and long-running series has shown that I think we do, because there's not enough evidence to prove otherwise as far as I'm concerned. Now, I would love this to be a discussion on my channel. I would love this to be a discussion on my Discord. If I get a lot of hate for it, or if I get a lot of, whatever else, love for it, then maybe I'll make a part 2 discussing your guys' comments and stuff, depending on how well this video does. But I hope you guys enjoyed, and let me know your thoughts down in the comment section down below. Do we put too much hype, or do you think that the hype is relevant? Once again, 1,000 is a bit of a bigger milestone than chapter 400 or 300. To some people, not to others, but to hit the 4-digit mark, just like how some chapters, if you look at these charts once again, the chapter 100 seems to be one of the bigger moments that a lot of mangakas do make a big deal out of, because you've hit a new numerical figure. You've gone from the double digit to the triple digit. One Piece going once again to the 4-digit, that's going to be, the quadruple digit. That is going to be relevant enough that I think Oda is going to do something relevant. I just think that the community is going to be hyping it up a little too much. So that being said, hope you guys enjoyed the video. Like, comment, and subscribe. Once again, let me know your guys' thoughts on this topic down in the comment section down below. It's great to hear from you guys. This has been Griever with sort of a different video, but I hope you guys enjoyed. We'll see you back here next time, ladies and gentlemen. Peace out.